The so I'm calling the meeting to order, and we'll run through our agenda. Let's see, Christy, you have the agenda up? Oh, you're muted, Christy.
I don't. I'm just looking for it now. Sorry about that.
No, that's no problem at all. I actually had it up on my screen and I wasn't sure if that was me or you. So I was just checking. Okay, well, just to run through it quickly, because we have one main topic today, but we have some administrative matters to take care of first. The near-term committee meeting calendar is the first administrative matter. We're on a bi-weekly schedule for now. We're meeting once every 2 weeks. Essentially, there are some adjustments to that. One was during the holidays. Now we're going to be back on schedule starting with the meeting today. We met last week, we're meeting this week, and then we'll go on 2-week centers from this point forward. With some other exceptions, there are, we had discussed at the last meeting, holding a joint meeting with the Truro Committee. They've replied back and they're inviting us to join their meeting on the second Monday, I believe it's the second Monday of February. So that would be February 8th. And I believe that will work for us, but I want to make sure everyone is aware that we've been invited to do that. We would join their meeting for about the first 30 minutes. And this would be an opportunity for us to compare notes with our local or neighboring committee here. So I'll get back to them, assuming that unless there's any concern about not being able to make that meeting. I think everybody's available. Okay, good. I'll reply back then. Go ahead, Christy.
I actually got onto the meeting through the town website. I can't find the email that has the minutes and the link. I don't know where it went. Rebecca, could you forward it to me?
What's that? The minutes from the last meeting?
The agenda, sorry.
Oh, sure.
I'm so sorry.
No, let's see. Stand by 1 second.
It's also on the town website. You could...
I could do that. That's perfect.
Oh, okay.
I got pulled up because that's how I got here.
Oh, I thought you were saying you couldn't get to it on the website. Yeah, if you go under it, I've tried to get into my email while I'm on Zoom here, and it appears to be overburdening the system. So
no, I got it. This works fine.
Okay. So the other item to mention on the meeting schedule is we may have an opportunity to do a Wellfleet Community Forum. You may be familiar with those meetings. I think most of us are. They in the pre-COVID days, those would be events typically held in the evening at the COA, an opportunity for Wellfleet citizens to meet informally with people who are spearheading various efforts. And it was a question and answer opportunity. Basically a good forum for getting community information out. We'd like to use that. Well, at any rate, I contacted them and they're interested in meeting with us. And it would be a good chance for us to answer any questions. And also, and most importantly, from our standpoint, get information, get inputs from the public on their ideas regarding alternatives for the bikeway, and also what goals and objectives we might be considering as we evaluate the different candidates, because we want inputs on both those topics. So that date is TBD. I told them that I would bring it up at this meeting and ask for your availability for dates. They need probably a 3-week window before we hold this. So it would be, say, the week, no earlier than the week of February 8th. Are there thoughts on a date to hold the meeting? Or let me throw one out if there aren't any inputs, and that is that we offer them those 2 weeks, either the week of February 8th or the week after that. The week after that might actually be better because I think we're going to have a full week on February 8th if we're meeting with the Truro Committee.
Yeah.
So thinking through it here on the fly, how about if I recommend that we meet the following week?
That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay. I will get with them on that. That will be that would be the week of February 15th. And I'll send them an email and ask them if they can accommodate that. Good. I contacted the P-Town Bicycle Committee at the last meeting. Someone, and it may have been you, Christy, had brought up the idea that we, in addition to connecting with our Truro counterparts, that we also team with the Provincetown Committee. So I've emailed them and to establish an initial contact with them, and we'll see where it goes. I haven't heard back yet, but they do have a committee email address. I also emailed. They have a contact in the Provincetown DPW, so I emailed him as well. So that hopefully one way or the other we'll be able to get contact with the Provincetown Committee and perhaps set up a discussion with them. Let's see, we can go over our meeting rules for
Hey, Peter.
Yeah, Ned.
How the last time that we met with Truro, there was at least one representative from Provincetown. I don't know if you could check with Provincetown and see if they could also meet, and then we have all three at the same time. I think would make a lot of sense if it's possible,
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Let me I can float that by the Truro people. They'd be hosting us in their meeting as participants, technically, which constitutes a meeting on our part. If the Provincetown Committee would be available, that would be great. The other thing is whether technically it's workable because of Zoom, because we're going to be meeting just like this, on Zoom with them.
Yeah.
If they want to have somebody, maybe they at least have a representative at the meeting, even if their committee doesn't fully attend. That's a good idea. Let me pursue that too, and I'll let you know what I find out. Christy, could you cover how we, because we want public comments in these meetings, could you just run through real quickly what our meeting guidelines are and also the email and everything?
I am pulling it up right now. Sorry about this. Oh, there we are. All right. So, oops, wrong document. I'm having some technical difficulties this morning. I'm so sorry. Here we are. No. Okay. So,
Or we could just paraphrase them.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Committee invites public comment and input at the end of each agenda item with a 1-minute limit for each speaker. We welcome more feedback through email as well as proposals to the committee that can become future agenda items.
Yeah. So I lost a little bit of your audio there, but I think that if anyone had difficulty hearing that, we welcome public input during the meetings. Typically what we'll do is at the end of an agenda item, at that point, we'll invite public input, and we try to limit it to 1 minute per speaker, which under most circumstances is plenty of time to make a point with us. We're a small committee, we're your neighbors, so feel free to contact us outside of this meeting, and email is a great way to do it. We do have a committee email address that's on our website, and we review that just about every day, and we can we welcome any detailed inputs where you'd want to make perhaps send us something in writing. So either here in the meetings or by email. Good. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Christy, I'll hand that over to you. You've done a great job drafting the minutes. Anything to add as far as the meeting draft?
No, and I'm working on my sound here. Is everything? Can you guys hear me? All right.
You're fading in and out a little bit, but can hear you though.
Okay. I wish I could figure. I'm changing my microphone, seeing if that works.
Okay.
But I move to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And if you could send those to the town, is it the town clerk who you send those to?
Well, I don't. It's Rebecca.
Okay. Yeah, she's the assistant to the town clerk.
That's right. And then I copy the town clerk as well. So
Great.
I'll get
Okay.
those to them today.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, for now, I think those meeting minutes are really providing a good rundown on progress we're making through these meetings. So it's a great reference for the public, but it's also a good reference for us.
What you're supposed to do is call in and.
So the, let's see, we have, we've approved the minutes. The committee's official charge, unless somebody has that at hand, I can read that. The reason we include that at the start of our meeting here is just as a reminder of what it is we are doing and why. So the Viking Walkways Committee charge I have here, the committee is hereby established to consider ways to provide safe areas for biking and walking. The Board of Selectmen believes that these activities should be available seasonally and year-round, as they are an important means of local transportation, are popular activities in the town, and promote good health. The Bike and Walkways Committee is charged with the following tasks. One, to work with the Cape Cod National Seashore, the towns of Provincetown and Truro, and the Cape Cod Commission to establish the continuation of the bike trail northward into Provincetown. And then two, to provide a plan for future bike and walkway and walking routes through the town of Wellfleet. So with that said, on with our meeting. The first real topic regarding issues here is bikeway route through Wellfleet to Truro, and to produce a draft list of the available route options based on known information. And this list that we create today will not be a final list, but it's a starting point for adding additional ideas from the public and from others. There are two things I'll note. One is regarding the naming of the trails. We should have a good naming convention for these trails as we move forward. And through some offline discussions, it's been suggested that we just considering them as either just trail options 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., or A, B, C, D. But that we will avoid any names that where we're tying them to somebody or to a place for now, because we want to keep we want to do an objective review of these and avoid any bias in the names. So the other point is how we record those during the meeting here. And some of us have a lot of notes on various routes. Christy, could I ask you to keep a bit of a running tally of the different routes that we talk about, just for official purposes? Okay.
Should we make a vote on naming them by letter or number so we can right off the bat start with that?
Sure. Let's have some discussion. What would you Who would like to
I vote that
comment
we
on that one?
use letters, because if we're using a number system to rate it, it could get confusing to have the routes referred to by their number, and then people are looking at the rating system for the number. It may get confusing. So I think a lettering system would work well.
Okay, so thinking down the road to when we're actually scoring the various alternatives and they end up with numerical scores, if you have a numbering convention for the routes followed by a score number, you're saying that could potentially be confusing. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I agree with Rebecca. I think that's a good way to go.
Okay. So Rebecca, I heard you, it sounds as though you're making a motion to use that naming convention.
Yes.
Ned, I think your comments almost imply a second of her motion.
Yeah, definitely. Second.
Okay. So all in favor of adopting that naming convention for our purposes? And that will be for, as we develop this list, obviously, these aren't final names for the options, but they're names for our purposes here for evaluating the different alternatives side by side. Great. Let's go ahead and talk about the options then. We have, and again, I know there were a lot of, some of the routes are very similar that I've seen. I've seen some public input that has routes that have many of the similar segments, but have differences. So in this conversation, I would propose that we consider them each separately. Later on, as we get into our evaluation, we may find that it's worthwhile to evaluate segments and then build them into different trails, because they're, for evaluation purposes, we may want to break them out as segments. But for today, we probably should look at each trail end to end, identifying what the various options are, so that we have a laundry list of complete trail ideas. Who would like to start with ideas, with inputs on trails? Let me turn it over to you, Ned, actually.
Well, I was going to say, start off with the list that Ryan sent. Those are kind of the real basic beginning lists.
Okay.
Trails, and maybe list them initially.
All right. And I want to note also, we did receive a number of inputs from members of the public, and thank you for the ones that we received. We received some by email this past week, and I want to say thank you for those. In fact, if I saw the people who had emailed them, I'd ask them to, this would be where first and foremost, I'd want to hear what some of the public inputs are. I don't see them on the meeting, so we'll go ahead and do what you propose, Ned. And I've stripped a lot of the name. I've got some notes here, but I've taken people's names off of them. So you mentioned an email that came in with a number of ideas. The ones that I think you're referring to, there was one that talked about taking the current route to Old County Road, and then continuing north along the utility route, crossing Cahoon Hollow Road and Long Pond Road, and then following Old Kings Highway from that point.
Yeah, that's the first. And then doesn't it also have one where it just goes out? I'm trying to find out to Cahoon Hollow Road, and then out that way. That's kind of the most basic one that DCR was originally proposing.
And so let me back up. Let's start there. Thank you. Tell me if this is what you mean. Is that Old County Road going from Old County Road to Cahoon Hollow Road along the utility route, or any other route for that matter? But once at
Right.
Cahoon Hollow, to then proceed down Cahoon Hollow to Route 6, and then to continue up Route 6.
Right, and then he also have a, again, I can't find them right now, but I thought he also had a proposal to go out east on Cahoon Hollow Road out to Ocean View Drive and then just over along that way. I think I thought that was among the really basic beginning ones.
There are a few.
Yeah.
And a lot of different permutations of those. There is a route option that goes along Ocean View Drive. But I think that's a different one, because there were some options that had been considered in past years in studies by the Cape Cod Commission and the National Seashore.
Right.
And so go ahead, Ned, did you want to?
Well, I guess that's what I was kind of thinking, is just to go with some of those basic ones at the seashore originally, just exactly that, the most basic original routes. And
yeah,
I lost that email to that Ryan had sent, and I thought he had those in there. But
okay, let me I can go through some notes I have here. There is a route that I've seen in some of the past reports that was actually a bit difficult to follow, but essentially went from LeCountalla Road, I believe, to Old Kings Highway, and then along Old Kings Highway to, was it Cahoon Hollow Road?
yeah, I mean, but I mean, I think we can establish the launching point being the Old County Road now, because the DCR is going to definitely take it to there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're exactly right. Let's use that as our starting point. And I was just referring to, some of these past options that were considered like a dozen years ago, that kind of thing.
Right. Those what I was trying to list as the initial ones. And I thought, though, yeah, I don't think any of them are very viable, but we certainly want to list them all anyway. So.
Okay. Well, here's what I've got in my notes, if it would be helpful. There was one in the past report that was called the Intercape Corridor. And that was a potential route to the west of Route 6 that would be primarily a share the road route. And that would essentially be taking advantage of roadways to the west of Route 6. If you're familiar with the Saltonstall Bikeway, that's the one that essentially goes West Main Street, includes some of the roads back behind where the transfer station is, and then goes up to Truro. That is an established bike route, actually, but it is a share the road bike trail. Reading state reports, traffic conditions have intensified since that trail was established, and it's suitable for experienced riders and people who don't mind the steep grades. But and it gets a lot of use, but otherwise it's not the best option for meeting all the criteria regarding accessibility and a safe riding experience. And I'm not judging it personally. I'm referring to some of the state reports on this. That's why they were looking, a reason that they were looking at doing something else in addition to the Saltonstall, the existing Saltonstall Bikeway. But
the problem with that too is you've got to cross Route 6, get into town. You know, I mean, that's certainly done. And like you said, for experienced riders, it's good, but I don't think it's really what we're looking for.
So the Intercape Corridor, which is documented in some of the state reports, would be one option then. There is what the state referred to as an eastern alignment concept, and this is one that would go from the end of Old County Road and then proceed north and it would go through the National Seashore, starting behind the COA on the eastern side of the utility corridor. In their language, the path would cross over Cahoon Hollow, Long Pond Road, Gross Hill Road, and Gold Pond Road, essentially following the utility line, but going through National Seashore property. That's a route that others had called the Cadillac Plan, Ned.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, any other comments on that one? I mean, the description I just read, is there more?
I mean, I think that's, you're going to see redundancy in a lot of these routes, because a lot of the routes are going to end up with basically what that Cadillac route is, with different variations off it. So I think that would be a good for route number A. The first, that seems like a good one to list as A.
Okay.
Many parallel roads to the power lines, so it's I wondered, where does it come off of the power lines? Does it come off at Gross Hill Road onto Old County Road again, or Old Kings Highway?
At Gross Hill Road, if you cross over Gross Hill Road and then just start on the power lines, almost instantly bearing off to the right is Old Kings Highway, the old dirt fire road.
Some of these ones that we're starting with, as we described, that came out of the state documents, have more or less general descriptions, but they're not as specific as some of the alternatives that local people have come up with. And the ones we're talking about right now are worded in a very general sense. In fact, this particular plan has been worded slightly differently in different places, in different sources. But essentially, it would be something that would go through National Seashore property to the east of the power line, not necessarily adjacent to the power line. And I haven't seen mention of Old Kings Highway in the description of that plan, that Cadillac Plan. And that's not our term, by the way, Cadillac Plan. That's one that came up through public meetings years ago. So Ned, is that a good description?
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think they don't specifically name Old Kings Highway. So I think the Seashore was probably thinking at that time that they could just build a path parallel to the power lines, right off the power lines. But
now, there's a reason that we're considering some of these plans that come from past reports is that they do have advocates. And as such, and because they were listed in some of these source documents, we want to make sure that they're considered in our report so that it's fully comprehensive, that we've looked at all the options that are available to us. So that's why we're painfully going through a couple of the ones that are kind of generally worded here.
right.
Okay. One input we received this week was to go down the Boy Scout Campfire Road to Cahoon Hollow. Let's see, from the Wellfleet Campgrounds, take the DCR bike path, proposed DCR bike path eastward toward Route 6. Prior to crossing Old County Road, go to the right off the DCR path, crossing directly under the power lines into the fire road. take the Boy Scout Camp Fire Road to Cahoon Hollow within the National Seashore Land. Go west on Cahoon Hollow, staying on the right toward the Beachcomber.
Yeah, that's kind of confusing. I think it's east on Cahoon Hollow that he meant to say on that. I was reading
think
that
so,
last
yeah.
night. Yeah.
Unless my east and west are back or
Right.
reversed. Yeah. So
I saw that
exactly.
last night and I was saying that doesn't sound right. Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. So going east toward Ocean View Drive, and then this route would go on the non-ocean side of Ocean View Drive, the inland side.
That's kind of vague. Is that what is he proposing there? That they create a new pathway? Because there's nothing existing that I know of. Because it sounds like he's talking about paralleling Ocean View Drive, but inside of it, on the west side of it, is that?
You'd be on the. It sounds as though what the broad strokes, and the email that was sent to us has more detail that we can list in our alternatives matrix. But essentially, once you're at Cahoon Hollow Road, to go along Cahoon Hollow Road to Ocean View Drive, and then go on the inside of Ocean View Drive toward Gull Pond Road. At the intersection of Grosse Hill and Gull Pond, to continue down Gull Pond Road to Old Kings Highway.
Right.
So Ocean View Drive to Grosse Hill, then down Gull Pond Road to Old Kings Highway, and then take that to Collins Road.
Right.
Okay.
Is that on the outside of the ponds?
Yeah.
Not saying on Ocean View Drive, we're inside the land, but outside the pond.
Yeah, that's where it's vague. But I assume that he's talking about cutting a trail parallel to right on the side of basically of Ocean View Drive. I expect that's what he means, because there's nothing in there that goes north along parallel to Ocean View Drive. There's nothing directly that I know of.
You mean in terms of you're talking about trails or fire roads?
Yeah. So I assume he means to cut once you get to Ocean View Drive, rather than being right on Ocean View Drive, at that point there would be a trail adjacent, a lane. I don't know. That seemed that part was vague to me. I read that a couple of times last night but I mean it's potentially a nice route. I wouldn't rule it out. It's longer. It's very indirect. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if we have a question on this route, I guess it boils down to, are we talking the route, the part that's parallel to Ocean View Drive, is it along the road or is it set in away from the road?
It sounds like he wants it to be in, but he doesn't clarify that at all. And that would be good to get some clarification on that. If that proposal is to then, as I say, cut a new trail or lane on the other side of Ocean View Drive, add a bike lane on Ocean View. It's really, all he's saying is he wants it on the west side of Ocean View Drive running north.
And we could consider both options. So as we're looking at that could become two separate ones.
Yeah.
What is it possible to go on National Seashore land without dealing with any property ownership? I think there's room, so
there's no property ownership issues there that I know of. I don't think there's any houses on that side of the road. You could, but you are on National Seashore, so you'd be up to the seashore. And the issues there, like Colstrom said that last time, is not so much that they wouldn't do it, but it's going to take a long time with bureaucracy in Washington. But I think one way or another, we're going to have to deal with that at some point. I don't see how we don't get onto the seashore at some point.
Well, just as a reminder, we're not
right.
We're not assessing we're not going to evaluate the options today, but we're just we're identifying what they are so that we can. We're not doing a scorecard, but we're just doing a list.
But we could say maybe that what happens is there become these variations that can be linked to one another to say, well, all of these alternatives share this segment, that naming the segments within the alternatives, because if,
Yes,
say, we end up like we've done so far, approving segment by segment, that might help with some of the productivity of getting approval like it has so far.
agreed.
Yeah.
I think when we get to that point, we're going to want to be looking at the various segments. Yeah, today's discussion was just to see if we have what the end-to-end solutions are that different people have proposed. We started with the few that were, some of the older routes that have been considered and in some cases not pursued in the past, but we just want to make sure that we include. And then, of course, there's this new input that we just talked about, which was includes a going a distance down Ocean View Drive.
So should we, at least for today, it seems like to me we already have kind of named 2 viable routes that we should maybe put letters to today. And like you said, we have, and I got to rein myself in, we got to not think about critiquing them or anything, but just getting these routes on the list for right now. It seems like those 2, I think, are viable that we should at least put on the list for now.
I'm from my notes here. I've got A and B. Yeah. Okay.
And I would propose a 3rd one that I remember was on Ryan's before and has come up fairly often is to come off Old County Road to Cahoon Hollow, and then you proceed west briefly, and then they talk about just on the east side of the cemetery to cut a route across there that would hook up to basically Old Kings Highway that then goes to Long Pond Road. And I think that was all that route did. I'm pretty sure that was on one of Ryan's list earlier too. And I think that's something that should absolutely be considered. It's very short, very direct, and gets you to Long Pond Road, which is great because that can get you into town. And even at that point, if we couldn't get anything else and you had to get back on the highway at that point, it's not, again, all right, I'm not going to start critiquing too much, but that was, I think, a reasonable route to consider.
Let's, there were a lot of permutations on the trails that he had flagged to us. And I suggest we take those as a bundle to look at, but that's a good idea. That one in particular is an interesting one. Let me throw out, if we're doing A, B, and C, for C, we need to consider the route that has been proposed already by the state.
And can I interrupt for a moment? I'm sorry. Do you guys see this chat? We got a chat saying, can you let Richard Bach back on? I think someone maybe got out of our meeting unintentionally.
Oh.
You have someone in your waiting room?
That's interesting. Yeah, let me see if we can figure out how to.
And now I can stop the screen share for a minute, which I might have already done anyway. At the moment, it's just the 4 of us.
Right. That's all I see. Okay, hopefully they come back and we can add them to the meeting. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for bringing that up, though, Christy. That's we want to make sure everyone can get access to our meetings. So I propose that alternative C be the rail trail to Route 6, then continuing a multi-use wide sidewalk along Route 6 to the Main Street intersection, and then continuing along with Sharrow lanes along Route 6 toward Truro, and widening Main Street into town, providing a sidewalk and lanes along Main Street. So that's that would cover some of the previously proposed plans. And it also covers the two inputs that we received from Tom this past week. The number in the email that you mentioned, Ned, started off with go from Old Kings Highway to Cahoon Hollow Road by any route, which I found interesting because that, of course, needs to be, we need to identify the route there. But one can presume there are two ways to do it. One is to go along the utility route, and the other is to find a path through the National Seashore Woods that gets from Old County Road to Cahoon Hollow, that avoids any property and is not alongside the road.
I would propose next we examine what it has been called Rebecca's route, and obviously we have to rename it. But
I just want to say that I don't know why it says Rebecca's route, because that is not a route that I'm familiar with, nor did I come up with it. I don't know why it's not this Rebecca.
It's your name anyway now. Let's put R on that instead of ABCD. We'll put R.
Okay, and could you describe that route?
Rebecca, you want to take that? You know that route, because I'm.
No, I don't know. I
don't know it.
No, that's why I don't know why it was called Rebecca. I'm fully unfamiliar.
Because there's one term on that in the middle that heading to Long Pond Road, and it's named some lane, and I'm not.
Yeah,
I kept thinking, oh well, Rebecca knows that, so I haven't followed up on it.
Yeah, sorry.
I assumed that was yours. Wow.
No, not at all.
But it seems like it's pretty close to the one that Derek and I are proposing, and but anyway, I think that I'll investigate that further, because there's one section of it I'm not familiar with. I just don't know the name. I probably know what the trail on it, but I'll check that out further. But I think we should list that one. You have that, right, Rebecca? You have the information on that.
I got that same email from Ryan that you did. I don't have it in front of me though.
Yeah, but I think we should.
But I think we should list all the ones that he listed,
exactly,
because we're not evaluating them. We're just trying to list them at this point. So
Right, we're just trying to list them. Let me ask you: is this the route that you're talking about, going from Old Kings Highway to Cahoon Hollow Road?
Yeah.
Following Cahoon Hollow Road to Forest Road.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's it. That route there.
Taking Forest Road to Long Pond Road. Okay. And then there were three options from that point that I saw listed for that. That is to either go on a road that's called Old Long Pond Road.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
To Route 6.
Yeah.
So
that comes right out by Gross Hill Road. That's what that's talking about. Old Long Pond Road empties out right near the fire station.
Where does Old Long Pond Road begin?
It really, you can hook up onto it right off Long Pond Road, and we're close to the utility. That's why you could get it right off their utility. Okay,
I just trying to define what this route is in detail. So it would be Old Kings Highway to Cahoon Hollow Road, Cahoon Hollow to Forest, going along Cahoon Hollow Road to Forest Road, take Forest Road to Long Pond Road, go along Long Pond Road,
right, to Old Long Pond Road.
And then you would do one of three things: either take Old Long Pond Road to Route 6.
Yeah.
He said build a ramp from Long Pond Road to Route 6. That was actually one of the options in that email.
Yeah. Huh.
Long Pond to Route 6, there's the bridge over.
I know, it doesn't make much sense to do that.
But that doesn't, I think the recommendation was to get to Route 6, and because there's a bridge that goes over Route 6, to off on the side on the Route 6 right of way to create a ramp that would lead down to Route 6. You'd have bike access from Long Pond Road to Route 6. And then the third option was to take Long Pond proceed along Long Pond Road to, I'll pronounce this wrong, Sapakonish Way.
That's the one that I didn't understand. Yeah, and I don't know where that road is. I'll have to figure that one out.
And that would go to Gull Pond Road and then to Old Kings Highway. And,
I think
Collins
I know
Road.
where that is. Last weekend I was riding out there, and I'm pretty sure I know it kind of parallels. It's a little bit east of the power lines by a few hundred yards, and then it parallels and it hooks up into Old Kings Highway. That's a nice route. That option especially.
There were three main options that were proposed in that email. Just for the sake of time, how about if I state what those were, because I pulled them out of the email.
Yeah.
And then Christy, I'll get with you later. You can put together a table. Essentially, it's get from Old Kings Highway to Coon Hollow Road for any of these options. And then there are some main differences. One is to go either down the power lines to Long Pond Road, or to go Cahoon Hollow Road to Forest Road to Long Pond Road. And the third option to get to Long Pond is to go Cahoon Hollow Road to Way 54 to Way 626 to Long Pond Road. Those are the three main segments to get from Cahoon Hollow to Long Pond Road, either the power lines, Cahoon Hollow to Forest Road to Long Pond, or Cahoon Hollow to Way 54 to 626 to Long Pond Road. So all those options involve some degree of following existing roadways or putting a bike lane alongside a paved road like Cahoon Hollow Road or Long Pond Road. And then from there, the three options that I saw listed to get from Long Pond Road further are either to go Long Pond Road to Route 6, in which case there are two options, either to go along Old Long Pond Road or to build a ramp. And then the other way is to get out to go from Long Pond Road to Collins Road, going along this Sapakonish Way to Gull Pond Road to Old Kings Highway.
Yeah.
It ends up that totals about 9 or 10 different options if you take all those different segments and put them together. Let's see, we've got somebody in the waiting room. Here we go. Okay. And those different, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say then the proposal that my brother and I have been working on is pretty similar to what you just did that last road, especially that Suckamonish, whatever it's called, way. And I can send me, he's made some detailed maps of it, and too, I can forward that to you. But anyway, this last proposal is starting off at Old County Road, and then similar to Tom's, we would come up and over to they call it Boy Scout Road, the dog park walkway. There's a fire road there, which takes you out to Cahoon Hollow Road, where you would have to briefly go on Cahoon Hollow Road east towards Great Pond, and just before you get to Great Pond, that's Forest Road, really, which the fire road right there, and we take Forest Road, and the proposal we like is, so you're doing that, but instead of taking Forest Road the whole way as you're heading towards Long Pond, it bears off northward, and then it connects on through to Old Kings, over to the power lines again, and then to Old Kings Highway.
Okay, so that's another option then,
right?
Different from the ones we've just talked about.
Yeah, because it changes you're on Forest Road, And then there's no name, it's just a trail at the moment, a pretty wide trail that proceeds north. And then that gets you out to the power lines at Gross Hill Road or Long Pond Road, I'm sorry. And then we would proceed across along the power, and that's, at that point, there is a fire road on the edge of the power lines, heading that north, and then to Gross Hill Road. And then when you cross Gross Hill Road on the power lines, at that point, you can connect onto Old Kings Highway. And
So
then
for
Old
those,
Kings Highway.
for those who are keeping score, that is our 18th option. So, yeah. So clearly we have segments that are used in multiple alternative routes. They have, I mean, the routes have a lot of segments in common, but there are a real variety of permutations.
Right.
Maybe
But you can kind of break it down to a few basic routes with different spurs and segments on them, you know. So it might not have to be 18 different names, as much as I think we could break it down to, you know, 7 or 8 basic routes with different segment options on those routes.
And a lot of times that's what's done in municipal bikeway studies. They look at the various segments that are available, and then how to best to combine those segments to make an end-to-end route. In our case, and in some of the examples around the country, there are cases where there are segments that are unique to a particular trail, because you have to be able to bridge between some of the main segments. And so we'll have some considerations like that. But yes, you're exactly right, Ed. We're going to need to, we're going to have some main segments to consider that will add up to end-to-end alternatives. So although we may be talking about, at this point, about 18 different potential trails, we're not talking about 18 segments that have to be individually assessed. Okay.
I'm just curious, Ned, when you say, whoops, no, my phone's ringing. When you say northward from Forest Road, is that before Fire Pond that you turn north?
No, it's just after Dyer Pond. In fact, the trail, as you turn left, you get peaks of Dyer Pond as you go along it. You're going right along that that side of Dyer Pond. So you're heading to Long Pond, but before you've gone just past Dyer Pond on Forest Road, and then there's a trail, pretty wide trail to the left. So there's no real name for it, but there is a trail there that's heading north. And then you go north and you see that east side of Dyer Pond. You're actually pretty close to Dyer Pond, and then it heads on out to Long Pond Road at that point. And then you cross Long Pond Road onto the power lines. And that section, we would stay on the power lines. Is that there doesn't seem to be, at that stretch, there doesn't seem to be a lot of, the worst part of the power lines for ownership is from Cahoon Hollow, the private ownership. It looks like Cahoon Hollow to Long Pond Road, that stretch of the power lines has quite a bit of private property issues.
Well, remember though, we'll assess these.
Right. But anyway, sorry, I get carried away.
No, it's just since today we're just identifying the routes, and we'll be evaluating the routes separately. But we want to make sure we include all the potential routes today, and to give them all a fair shake. And then as we go through and assess them based on our goals and objectives and measurement criteria, we can figure out which ones have limitations and which ones have advantages. Honestly, although a lot of these different routes share segments, it's pretty clear that the different the different permutations of these routes. I mean, to provide a lot of variety. I mean, so
Yeah.
I think considering that the Cape is as narrow as it is in Wellfleet, we have a lot of different alternatives to consider.
Yeah.
To provide different qualities.
Yeah, there's just, a myriad of trails out there along and on the seashore. So if we start getting into, but you're right, there's just a lot of options possible, But
So
I think
Chris,
we want to identify some basic corridors, and then we can work on the different segments to try to put together the ideal trail. Yeah.
So, Christy, I know you're probably keeping notes fast and furious here. I know I am. How about if it'll be difficult, I think, to verbally review through a list now, but if I compare notes with you on what you've captured, I've got what I've got here. And then of course there's the video of the meeting. And we put together a list to include in the minutes of this meeting of what all these alternatives are. This obviously is a sound point, and that is that there are a lot of segments that these have in common. It's all the variety of how we get, say, from Old County Road. If we take an option that goes from Old County Road to Cahoon Hollow Road, how we connect those two roads. It sounds as though there are two main segments under consideration. One is to go take a route that is adjacent to the utility right of way.
Yeah. And
the other proposal that we've heard that was actually as a public input was to pursue a route that goes through the woods,
right
behind the Council on Aging,
right.
toward Cahoon Hollow Road,
Yeah.
and then proceed along Cahoon Hollow Road to a point either east or west. Yes.
Right.
Either east or west, depending on whether we would go with one option or another.
Right.
Let me ask you this: what about the option? Has it been considered to go along Old County Road to Cahoon Hollow Road? Has that ever been considered?
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, the most basic one I would say is like that DOT or DCR originally wanted DOT, I guess, just to go Old County Road to Cahoon Hollow Road and then west out to Route 6, bing, 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 and then you're on to your,
If that's been,
add that if it's not there.
What's that?
We should add that if it's not already.
Yeah, right. That's
I
what
agree.
I'm saying. I think that's absolutely. I think that's the original proposal.
I think we should add that as we're looking at the various segments. I think that's an important one to add because I haven't seen it in any of the options that I saw in reports or that we've heard from the public. And that sounds like one we don't want to overlook. Okay, so that would be 3 ways to get to Old County Road, or excuse me, to get to Cahoon Hollow Road. And then from Cahoon Hollow Road to Long Pond Road appears to be the next segment. Again, can either go down the utility right away, or there are a number of different paths to take potentially that go along a combination of either fire roads or following current paved roads. And that includes roads like Forest Road. There's the utility right away, Forest Road. We even heard one option to go out all the way to the vicinity of Ocean View Drive. Right. So the idea being that one way or the other, you get from Cahoon Hollow Road to Long Pond Road with a number of options. Then from Long Pond Road to Gull Pond Road, again, a number of options. One we've heard is the utility right of way. Another is to use Old Kings Highway. And then there was one option that talked about a couple of the ways.
Actually, Old Kings Highway, you can't get until you get to Gross Hill Road.
Oh, okay.
But, at least I don't think there's an existing way of getting out. So that the route you're saying, you get to Long Pond Road, then you pretty much have the utility. There is a fire road on the edge of the power lines that And then as you get to Gross Hill Road and you look right across the road, you're still starting off on the power lines, but then is where Old Kings Highway becomes a viable road again. All of a sudden it just pops up right there as a, I think basically when they built the power lines, they kind of obliterated part of Old Kings Highway. So I don't think there's a section of it between Long Pond and Gross Hill Road.
Okay, so it's essentially utility right of way then.
Right.
And then there are the other options that were sent to us, which included a couple of ways.
Well, we'll get this in our review, but I was going to say, so Old Long Pond Road, that's the one that goes Old Kings Highway, right?
Yeah, because there is Old Kings Highway gets you to Long Pond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then at that point, that's where it dies out right there on Long Pond Road, at least as far as being discernible. But then if you go across at that point, you can hook up to Old Long Pond Road. So that's what that route is. You come across Old Kings Highway onto Long Pond Road, and then across on the other side, you can pretty quickly get on through some fire roads. You can get onto Old Long Pond Road, which is just then a short road right down to by the police station. That's where it comes out on the highway.
So
Old Long Pond Road is not really a fire road; it's a residential one line.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be very difficult because of that. There's quite a few houses there, and that's their road. Yeah.
Well, again, that will come out.
Right, we're not
assessment.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But that would make it a shared road, bike path versus.
Right, it would have to be, I think, through there.
Viable. We wouldn't be going through their property.
No, there's a road, but it's their road to
one lane, one car only.
Yeah, it's just a dirt road that you'd have to widen it for sure. But again, we're not going to get into that, right? We're just
okay. Great. Well, a lot of notes here, and I would propose that we go ahead and just include these in the minutes for the meeting. Then, Christy, and I'll work with you to present these in a list where people can follow what we've talked about here, because there are principal legs to go along to get through Wellfleet that we've talked about, with a number of different options for each leg. And of course, there's always the Route 6 option, which a lot of these different, many of these routes are not necessarily off-highway routes. They're ones that connect to Route 6 in some fashion at some point. Okay, great. Christy, do you have the those graphics that were sent?
I do. Yeah.
Let me ask first: is there any other discussion regarding the routes? Yes, Rebecca.
Just when you were talking about having the Wellfleet Forum in a couple weeks, so at that point, is the idea that we'll present some of these routes and then ask the public for suggestions on any to add?
Let's talk about it. My going in recommendation would be that we present a simple list of the different routes that we're considering, if we break it down into the logical segments like Ned is saying, and we make it clear that it is a preliminary working draft by a committee that is looking for input, and it's a chance for the public to make inputs to us that maybe we haven't heard yet. But in looking through what we're considering, perhaps somebody comes to that meeting with an idea in mind, and they see that, oh, well, they've already got my idea on their list, and that would be a win. The other is perhaps somebody comes in and sees an option on that list that they hadn't considered, and all of a sudden they become an advocate for it. So it could be an interesting conversation. I think we both our committee and the public can gain from the discussion.
Right. So what we've covered today is just, what do we call it? Sort of a working draft list.
Yes. It's a starting point
Great.
for collecting other ideas.
Well, I can't think of anything to add then at this point.
Okay, we'll, good conversation. Again, at this point, I mean, this is a working meeting, and the sausage is being made. So it's a fun discussion to track, but I think we've got a lot of good ideas here. Were you able to find those?
I do have them. Yeah. Would you like the game plan or the methodology?
Two things. If you could please pull up the yes, the game plan.
There we go. Does everyone see it?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to put this in context, what we're doing today, which is that the upper left-hand quadrant of the chart here, we're looking at alternatives. Right now, we're taking committee member inputs and historic inputs. These are the ones that we've looked at as a committee. Committee members have come up with, but also we've had reviewed some of the past documentation for the planning out on the Outer Cape. And then we've also got inputs from the public from a number of different sources. When we talk with our Truro counterparts, we'll hear what they're thinking as well. And it sounds as though we're scheduled to have a meeting with them now on February 8th. We'll continue to get inputs, especially public inputs. If we do the community forum in early to mid-February. And then, meanwhile, notably absent from today's meeting is Lance Miller, who is working on the analysis methodology. We're keeping his effort firewalled from the discussion of alternatives so that the goals, objectives, and criteria that are organized for the purpose of the analysis won't be tainted or biased in any way by our discussion of the alternatives and mapping out what those are. Once we have the methodology drafted, once we finalize that, again, with inputs from a number of sources, including the public and town agencies and external agencies, we'll be taking it to the select board, get their go-ahead, and then we'll be in a position to perform this analysis and then provide a recommendation to the select board. So with that said, could you please, Christy, there's a Word document with the goals. And these are the goals in our analysis. There were two documents I sent. The first one was the incorrect document.
Right. So the draft methodology.
Yeah, that was the draft methodology, right. The goals document.
I think I've got it. Let me see.
Let's see.
Is this the updated one? I can double check that.
That's it.
Okay.
Last week, we talked about 4 goals for the by which to measure various alternatives, and they were safety, practicality, and if you scroll down, we're splitting. Can you scroll down? There we go.
Okay.
Can you go to the next page, please?
I think there's a delay. Are you guys seeing user enjoyment and
Yeah.
Yes.
So there were originally four. Well, when I say originally, last week there were four. You can see these last two here: user enjoyment, connectivity. There were also the two on the first page: safety and practicality, which we believed, after going through a lot of source documentation, we could map all the inputs we had from various other studies around the country, as well as public input, into those. Lance, again, has been independently working to organize ideas within these goals as he sets up the methodology. And of course, taking input to doing that. As he looked at practicality, we were mapping in a lot of things that had to do with avoiding impact on private property, or had properties adjacent to a bike route. Also, preservation of the environment, historical things of historical interest or cultural interest. In realizing that we had a number of objectives that specifically had to do with that preservation or property impact avoidance or environmental impact with those topics, he recommended that we split practicality into two, so that the proposal now is, instead of having 4 goals for the analysis, that we have 5. And so they would be safety, practicality, preservation, which would be the new one, and then user enjoyment and the network connectivity. So that's the one change. I sent this as a read ahead. You can see here the objectives are not defined separately yet. What we have is in paragraph form a description of what the objectives will contain under each goal. Lance is not at this meeting because we're maintaining that firewall, distancing his effort from the broad discussion of alternatives. But he asked me last night if I would bring this to the meeting for a vote. Since last week we said we did do a vote on the original draft of 4 goals. The recommendation here is to include 5 rather than 4. So any discussion?
That seems reasonable. Seems like the way to go.
Yeah, looks good to me.
I agree.
It's a really, I think it is an improvement. I think it's great.
It will, it will actually make a difference in scoring, because his concern was actually a technical concern, and that is that there were too many objectives stacking up under one goal, to the point where it was going to create an imbalance in the way that scores were being added. And by separating it into a separate goal, it can do a more balanced analysis. Okay. So I recommend, I move that we accept this version as our working draft to replace the last week's.
I would second that recommendation.
Oh, and excuse me, before we move forward, let's get some additional comment. Yes, Christy. Oh, you're muted.
I was doing approval.
Oh,
well, jumping the gun on my.
Yeah, I realized that before we move on, I wanted to, because we asked for public input for each agenda item before we move on. Is there any public input? So hearing none, we'll go back, and I will move that we accept these. I move that we accept this draft as our working draft for the goals and objectives of the analysis.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? All right. Okay, that's a vote of 4. So Good. And although Lance is not here to vote, we can assume that he is in favor because he drafted it. Good. Can you please, Christy, put up the methodology? And the graphic would be a good place to start. Oh, you're muted, Christy.
Sorry about that. I noticed in the past meetings when I'm typing the minutes that my microphone picks up the tapping, so I've been trying to mute, but I'm just having a hard time. So the draft methodology. I just want to make sure of the updated one. Is this the
Yeah.
one? Yeah. I have a graphic in here.
Okay.
Is this
So
the
you can
right
see,
one?
yeah, and then there's the graphic. You might as well, we can take a look at this real quickly just so you can see the document. Can you scroll down? There you go. And what I wanted to do is just get down to the end where we cite various references. And the Massachusetts references, the ones around the country. And if you keep going.
Whoops. Oh, I must have the the wrong one. This is the end of this one.
Oh,
I
is
think
that
I
the
must
end?
have pulled up. Oh,
Okay.
There we go.
The reason, okay, you got
Yeah.
it?
There's no difference. I have no graphic on either version.
No, the graphic was a separate,
Oh, you mean the game plan?
the game plan. Well, there is the game plan, but there's also a methodology. When I sent you the email, there's this, and then there's another attachment to that email.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, I got it. That's
Okay,
right.
can you pull that up?
Oh, okay, let me yes. There we go. Is everyone seeing it?
Says starting, there we go. Yeah, can you expand that out so we can see the whole picture? You might have to, there we go. Well,
Yeah.
for some reason, I'm missing the top of it. There it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so a quick rundown on the methodology. The reason I wanted to pull the document up is just to show that that the math that Lance described in last week's meeting was fully documented in the methodology. But we'll just go to this. This demonstrates what that math is, and essentially, this is a perfect example of how a picture is worth 1,000 words. You had the 1,000-word version last week. This is the picture version. So as we have various goals that are weighted, they then break into objectives, which are similarly weighted, supporting each goal. And then they break into various criteria. The goals and the objectives define what's important in the analysis. The criteria are the actual measures that are considered in the analysis. Each route will be scored against all the various criteria on a scale of 1 to 5, which is low to high. You multiply the score for a particular criteria by that criteria's weight. You end up with a range of scores possible from 100 to 500. And the key here is that Each of the goals is separate, non-overlapping. Each of the objectives, same, non-overlapping. And then again with the criteria, so that you end up with something that is a good scientific measure of each route independently scored against the same criteria. So it should be an apples to apples comparison. And are there any questions on the presentation? Hopefully this graphic describes it a little bit clearly, so that when we're talking with people in the public, especially like at a community forum, we can present something like this to describe what it is we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, this is great.
All right. Thanks for putting that up, Christy. The draft methodology document, I don't know that we need to put that up because you've seen that as a working draft already in email. It's as it becomes more finalized with inputs from others, then we'll ultimately be taking it out. We do want to get inputs on the methodology from people like the Cape Cod Commission before we go final. And we're going to be giving a lot of people in the town the opportunity for inputs on the goals and objectives, including various departments of the government, town government, and also committees and boards. We're not alone in doing a study like this. It turns out that at the other end of the rail trail, Barnstable is looking at how it's going to be doing its own extension. This came out in some newspaper articles in December, and we were able to contact the folks in Barnstable who are working on this, and in particular got a hold of their project engineer in DPW, Barnstable's DPW, who was working with the contractor to perform a study that was had similarities to what we're doing a weighted scoring of various alternatives with public input. So we had a chance to I contacted him. We had a phone call yesterday to talk about their analysis and get some more inputs. And Rebecca and I were both on that call with him. Rebecca, not to put you on the spot, but anything you want to say about yesterday's conversation?
I was very impressed. In that situation, they're not having a volunteer the town a lot of money by doing what they had to pay in-person staff and then a consulting firm to do. So that was significant to me, but I was very impressed with what he had to share and what they'd accomplished thus far.
Peter, I have a question. This is Helen. May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. To Rebecca and you, Peter. Was what's going on in Barnstable, is this happening now ahead of further stages in dealing with the state agencies? In other words,
that's a great question. So basically, they are behind where we are, and they're doing it more, in my opinion, the way it should have been done here, with a lot more transparency, a lot more step-by-step, the way we're trying to do it now.
yes. Can I just say that is a very significant thing.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I hope that the agencies are able to recalibrate. They don't have to admit the shameful lack of process that's been going on. If we can just start doing it right now, that will, I think, reflect well on them. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Ellen. When we left the conversation open with Barnstable, it was it was a good conversation all around, and I asked if we can contact him if we have further questions. He said, yes, absolutely. So I think we've got a good rapport, and that'll be a good source of information if we have additional questions. Good. Well, that was, although Lance is not here regarding the methodology, he certainly wanted to put some of this information up so that we could talk about what we're doing, where we're going, and get a vote on the expansion of the goals from 4 to 5. Are there any other, moving forward to the last item in our agenda, are there any other bike and walkway issues to discuss? Okay. Well, based on the inputs again, talking about the alternatives, unless there's anything further, then I'll get with Christy after this meeting. We'll make sure we have a good list. Everybody will have a chance to weigh in on that, and then once it's drafted to everyone's satisfaction, Christy can post it in the minutes. Sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody. It's Helen. Sorry
Bye,
I
Helen.
came late. I had something else, but it was very heartening. Thank you.